hopefully we got our dog AI at the right time in a sterile environment as we possibly can. So now it's pregnancy time. So what can go wrong in a pregnancy? Well, of course, the first thing is the dog doesn't get pregnant. The dog absorbs the puppies. The dog gets an infection. The dog absorbs the puppies later on in the pregnancy. The pregnancy comes early. The whelp comes early. You have some discharges. We're going to talk about all that stuff. All right. So the first one is, what do we have to do for this girl after we've AI'd her? Well, immediately after the AI, I like to put a dog into a crate so she can't pee or poop or move around for at least an hour. We want all the semen that we put on her to stay in one place. We don't want it to be bounced around and shaken out. And I don't care whether it's a natural or whether it's an artificial insemination, same technique. Stick them into a crate for an hour with a blanket over it and just let them go to sleep, be quiet. We don't want them going outside and peeing. We don't want them running around. Okay. And by the way, I didn't mention this in the other thing. When you're doing natural AIs, be careful about being tied up with other dogs. That's something I didn't discuss last time. And that's something that does happen where the wrong dog mates your dog. Or your dog is in heat and you let the dog out in the backyard and a neighbor's dog or a dog in the neighborhood jumps the fence, digs underneath the fence and breeds your dog. You may not even know that it happened. And I see this quite a bit. So keep your dogs inside while they're going through the heat process. And that is really from first signs of blood for about 3 weeks to be safe. You want to keep these dogs away from other dogs to be safe. You can even have dogs that go on and are receptive longer than that, but it's certainly, if you do 3 weeks, you're probably fine. All right, so we've got the dog bred successfully in a sterile manner, and we think that we've got our timing right. So what do we do now? Well, the first thing is mark your calendar for 61 days from AI, 61 days from AI, 60 days from a surgical or a TCI. And the reason that's a day shorter is because they're done a day later. Or if you can do 63 days from ovulation, which normally is a level of 5 on the IDEX. All right, 61 days from the AI that was done on 15, or 60 days from the AI that was done on about a 25. All right, so we are now counting down to this end point where we're gonna whelp puppies. So what do we need to do for this dog, or what can go wrong? Well, the first one is we'd like to know whether she's pregnant, probably. So what are the signs of that? A dog that's never had puppies before will have very small nipples that aren't hardly protruding. The first signs are typically the nipples get bigger. So nipple enlargement. Good sign that you are successful. A dog may be more sleepy, more restful. She might have some morning sickness. These are all good signs that your dog is pregnant. Problem is, that one there could be something a lot more serious. Not a pregnant dog, but a dog that's got a raging infection going on inside them. So, if there's any doubts as to whether your dog is okay, take a temperature. And a normal temperature is going to be something around 101, is 100 to 101 is a normal temperature. Whoops, 100. Normal temperature. If it's 99.5, don't worry about it. If it's 100, 101, don't worry about it. If it's 101.5, 101.5 or more, that is something that is very concerning, and you have to worry about whether there's something going on. It could be vaginitis. More seriously, it could be pyometria. Pyometria is where you have an infection of the uterus. There's closed pyometria where the pus is not coming out, which is more dangerous. There's open pyometria where the fluids are coming out of the dog and you can see a pussy, purulent discharge. If you're in this situation here, you need to go to the vet because you're probably going to need to get some antibiotics on board. That is the fix for that. And it's a whole course of antibiotics for at least 8 days. And you've got to choose the right antibiotic so that you don't wipe out your litter. So this is time for a vet. I mean, there are antibiotics that you can buy for fish that you could treat this yourself. I've got videos on that, but we're not going to talk about that here. But I am saying if you've got a dog that's got a temperature of 101.5, that is a serious situation and you need to get on top of it. It doesn't mean you're going to lose the litter, but it could mean that if you don't do anything, you might lose mama. So get on top of that. Okay. So while this pregnancy is going on, what are some things that we absolutely shouldn't do? Vaccinations. That's a no-no. All vaccinations, stop. You should have done those before you ever got the dog bred. You should have got the dog in the best health you could, up to date on wormings and shots. No rabies shots during vaccinations. No steroid shots during vaccinations. In fact, no heart medications during vaccinations. During pregnancy. We'll talk a little bit here in a second about worming, because we are going to do that at the back end of this. But generally, we want to keep away from any medications during the pregnancy, unless you've been to a vet and the vet has prescribed them and the vet realizes that your dog is pregnant. If you go to the vet, the very first thing to say is, hey, I bred my dog 2 weeks ago, so be aware of that. This is going on, what should we do? So, vets are great, but they've got to know all the information. If you just take your dog in, they're not going to know the dog's pregnant. And they might say, oh, she's due for a vaccination. Give her the vaccination shot. And you go pick the dog up and they said, yeah, we trimmed her nails and we cleaned her ears, but we gave her that vaccination shot that she was due. And it's like, oh no, shit. Keep the vet on top of what's going on. Right? No vaccinations, no medications unless indicated because the vet says the dog needs the vaccinations, and then ask questions and make sure they realize this dog is pregnant. So what do we do? I'm going to get rid of this now. What do we do to find out whether the dog is pregnant? So these were the signs. The confirmation of pregnancy, confirmation. Well, you've got signs, we just talked about those. You can do a relaxin test. This is a blood test, relaxin test at about 30 days, out from AI. We sell those kits. You do have to draw blood. You get results in 10 minutes. Easy to do. You can do an ultrasound. Ultrasound give you a bit more information because you might see how many puppies are there. It's not always particularly, I quite often see dogs that have had ultrasounds where they say they're not pregnant and they are, or dogs they say there's 3 puppies and there's 5, or ultrasounds where they say there's 5 puppies and there's 2. So this is not the most accurate thing in the world, but it's certainly the thing that a vet can do for you. Then you can do an X-ray at day 45 or more. If you do it too early, the bones haven't calcified enough and it's not particularly meaningful. I do like an X-ray in 2 situations. One is a dog that you're not sure that it's pregnant and you're like 3 days from whelp and you don't want to go miss it and you don't want to have a C-section on a dog that doesn't have any puppies in it. So I do X-rays. I do the relaxin test because I like to know the dog's pregnant. And I do the X-ray if I don't think the dog's pregnant. If I know it's obviously pregnant, I personally don't worry about an X-ray. Unless you're going to do a natural whelp, and then I think an X-ray makes sense because that way you can count puppies as they come out, you know when she's had the last puppy, you know when she's pushed the last placenta out. So X-rays in those situations I think makes sense. Okay, so now what have we got to talk about? Right, so now let's talk about, so we talked about that, now let's talk about worming. I recommend that you worm your dog with Safeguard. Safeguard wormer, about a week out from whelp for 3 days. Recommended dose is, I think, 1 ml for 5 pounds of body weight. But go check it, don't rely on me for that. But I safeguard my dogs when we're about a week out from having puppies. And all this time, I've been giving folic acid. I've been giving 5 milligrams of folic acid. It helps for puppy deformities. We do it for women now as a prenatal, and I recommend you do it for your dogs. Don't get confused by mics. When you go look at most medications and prescriptions that have vitamins, they're normally like 500 micrograms. That's half a milligram. You want a lot more than that. You want 5 milligrams. I buy bottles of this stuff on Amazon. It's like $20 for 2 bottles of 100 tablets of each. It'll last you for almost a lifetime. But give folic acid all the way up until whelp. We also give a vitamin. So give a good quality general vitamin is a good idea. And we start moving towards more of a higher protein puppy diet for the last 10 days of the pregnancy. We don't want a skinny dog. We want a dog to have a bit of meat on its bones. And one of the problems you're going to run into here is loss of appetite, especially if she's full of puppies. She doesn't want to eat very much. So what do you do about this? Change the diet up. If she won't eat at all, try hand feeding her. If she doesn't like that, try boiled chicken and rice. Some things she doesn't normally have. We use Bill Jack. You can't get it on the West Coast. But so this is food, and we're talking about changing to a higher protein diet. Don't give calcium. We used to think that it would be a good idea to give calcium. You don't give calcium until whelp has happened, because you can muck up their calcium intake and cause problems with things like eclampsia. So I don't recommend giving calcium until whelp has occurred. Once whelp has occurred, that's fine, you can give calcium. What else is on my list here? Worming, diet and exercise. Right, so what can go wrong? Well, diet and exercise. Talk about diet, exercise. Limit the exercise is fine, it's good, but limit exercise in the last 2 weeks, especially if she's getting full of puppies. You don't want her having a placental tear by bouncing around. So that means don't jump off the bed. When you go out for a walk, have a leash on her. You don't want her chasing after cars. You don't want her jumping up and down on things. Just like you would with a human being, limit your exercise in the end of the pregnancy, so you limit shock, physical trauma to the babies bouncing up and down in her stomach. Right, so, and then of course the other thing that can happen here is you can get absorbed puppies. You can have a pregnancy that showed up on a relaxin test, you confirm the pregnancy, maybe did an ultrasound, there's puppies there, and then all of a sudden there's no puppies. What's happened? Well, these things happen unfortunately sometimes. One of the reasons for this is lowering of progesterone levels. Dogs that are pregnant need to keep their progesterone level at something above a 25. And if you've had a history of a dog that has absorbed puppies, I would be doing tests every week or two for progesterone levels to make sure that her progesterone levels are staying elevated. And if they're not, there are synthetic products that you can give, or your vet can prescribe, to keep her progesterone levels up. This is especially important towards the back end of the pregnancy, where progesterone levels can drop, and maybe that causes them to absorb puppies or even have puppies early. God, I really got on this one. We should have broken this one up. I think that's enough on this one, so let's just tick that one off the board for the pregnancy, and when we come back, we'll tackle the whelp. Thanks. Hey, thanks for watching the video. I really appreciate people who subscribe to me. It helps me, encourage me to do more of these videos. But do remember, disclaimer here, I am not a vet. I'm not a licensed medical professional. I'm purely a person who's been breeding dogs for the last couple of decades. Any information that you got from this video, use at your own risk. There's nothing implied here, and certainly this should not be used as a substitute for advice from your veterinarian or your medical professional. I hope you enjoyed the video. Come back for more of them. Bye.